all very welcome to the show. I tell you, we've got a packed show for you tonight. My sofa will be touching more bottoms than Boris Johnson at a boozy lunch. Yeah, another mad week in politics. Boris has finally announced his take-it-or-leave-it deal to the EU, and as I speak, we await their response. But an EU spokesman has said they welcome the Prime Minister's advances. Yeah, they're the only one. I tell you, this week a female journalist accused Boris of grabbing her thigh 19 years ago. And it's a, very kind of he said, she said, who to believe, a politician or a journalist? It's a tough one, I don't know. Boris denies it, and I must say, he's been on his best behaviour at the Tory party conference this week. Don't know if you saw this. Here he is, he's been sat next to an attractive aide, and he's trying very hard to keep his hand to himself. Must keep hands on own thigh. Hey, let's get some guests on! Later, we'll be meeting one half of Wham! Pop legend Andrew Ridgeley will be here. And we have music from Elbow. But first, he's the award-winning documentary maker who's gone from weird weekender to cult icon. It's Louis Theroux! Have a seat, Louis Theroux. He's been an actor, campaigner and giant of British comedy for over 40 years. Now here with his new autobiography, Who Am I Again? It's a warm welcome to Sir Lenny Henry! Beautiful. Come in, have a seat, too. And she's the Oscar-winning actress who made a national icon of Bridget Jones, now giving an extraordinary performance as the great Judy Garland. Please welcome, for the first time, Renée Zellweger! Greeting. Do have a seat there now.
Thanks so much.
And now this is unusual. Do you know, it's a very long time since we had this. None of you have been on the show before. Unless you contradict me.
No, we're all Norton virgins.
Yes! As many people are. Because, was it your girlfriend Lenny gave you advice about being on the show?
Listen. She just said listen. Don't be that guy that keeps interrupting. So, I've got to be very good and calm.
OK. But I'm sitting next to you!
I'm not so worried about you, Louis, because...
It is funny how Hollywood does. It's very exciting, isn't it? Yes, I know it's hard for you because you're it, but yeah, we're very excited. Because Louis Theroux, your career, you feel like watching them. You feel like you try not to be the star, and yet you've crossed this line. When did you discover you're kind of a cult figure? I would say.
Yes. Well,
I like that. Yes, I am.
I'm going to take that. No, because cult always sounds quite. That's a compliment, but cult always sounds either quite small or slightly fanatical and weird, which both of which I'm happy with. I'm happy to have anyone watching the programmes, but I do know that I realised about 5 or 6 years ago, I think it coincided with some of the shows turning up on streaming services.
Oh, yes.
That a younger generation was watching shows that I'd made 20 or 25 years ago, and that and some of them were making merchandise or buying merchandise of quite a peculiar sort. Of a sort that I didn't really always understand. Are you
talking about a particular T-shirt?
Well, there are many examples, believe it or not.
I have one T-shirt.
There is a T-shirt. There are many T-shirts. Do you want to show us the T-shirt?
I've got this T-shirt. Is this the T-shirt you're talking about?
It could be. I'll have to see it.
I mean, this is peculiar. And I have to say, I have seen people on the street wearing this T-shirt. It's... Can you read that there? It's Louis Theroux with tits.
Memo to self.
Loves that.
Memo to self.
Don't let. That's yours. That's yours.
I won't let my children... See, I've tried to protect I have young children. I'm trying to protect them from seeing this image. I just know how confused... Young boys do not need to see that, especially if their father... Yeah, riddle that if you can. I don't know what to make of it.
I'll fold it for you. I'll fold it for you, and you can collect it on your way out. There you go.
But it's basically very nice, and long may it continue. Yes.
Now, talking about being a star, Renée Zellweger is Judy Garland in Judy. I mean, really, you are. It's out tonight, and it's just extraordinary. There's this picture of actual Judy Garland at the Talk of the Town, which is when this movie's set. So there's real Judy Garland, and here's Renée. I mean, it is uncanny. Wow. It is really, really good. Yeah. I heard you talking about how the costumes really helped.
Oh, good dresses, yeah. Yes. Well, I would assume her posture, which was a little more, slouched and forward during the fittings. So Renée, to me, who made the dresses, she would fit them to that posture.
So you'd be sewn into that posture?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
No, it's great. Great reminder. If you want to get lazy during the day, you have no option. None at all.
You're in
no, the sequins were quite strict.
And this film, it focuses on a really specific part of Judy's life.
Yeah, toward the end of her life. It's about, I guess, 6 months before she passed. She did a series of concerts here at the Talk of the Town nightclub.
Let's talk about it some more, but let's watch a clip. This is you meeting some die-hard fans at the stage door. And in the film, those characters kind of represent her enormous kind of gay fan base. And, I mean, what is it about Judy Garland? What did you ever come to a conclusion about why she appeals to kind of that gay audience so much?
Well, I asked some of my friends who are members of the community, and a lot of them think that it might have to do with that she advocated for them at a time when it was not okay to live authentically. On television, she would acknowledge that she had members of the gay community as a fan base, and she championed them. She has a way of singing where she makes you feel like she sees you, she recognizes you. And, she probably could empathize with some of the struggles about being misunderstood and having difficulty finding love and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how you felt about it, but it struck me that, in a way, it's not just a film about Judy Garland. It's a film about show business and the choices that people make and the cost of fame. I mean, did all that stuff resonate with you?
A little bit, sure. Yeah, well, the cost of performance is a little different when you're stepping out on the stage night after night and you're singing 28 belters having not slept, Yeah, quite different. But, yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's a weird life,
Yeah.
It's weird.
Because in terms of that cost of fame, or I don't know what it was, but in around 2010, it seems you said, oh, I think I might step away for a little while. Was that boredom? Was it burnout? What was that?
It was a combination of a lot of things. Mostly I was bored of myself. I'd be giving an interview like this and thinking, oh, shut up, Same thing when I would be delivering lines. And I'd have this voice in my head going, oh, are you being sad now? Oh, look at you. And I thought, you can't be a storyteller when you're regurgitating the same old emotional experiences. You have to live authentically to have something to draw from. How do you empathize with people's experiences when you don't have any of your own?
That's true. It's very true, yeah.
I was always in someone else's clothes or, in someone else's flat country, body, whatever it might be. And it just felt it was time to do something else, learn something else, grow, and just stop boring myself to death.
Because, Louis, why do you think we're still so fascinated by this character, Judy Garland?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say was you are amazing in this film. And I thought it was extraordinary the way you inhabited and the performances that she did on stage. I thought you must have studied them because it felt so close to life, in my view. She died before I was born. But growing up in the 70s, we used to watch. Do you remember it was on Wizard of Oz? It was like the only film that was allowed to be on TV. Do you remember? Every Christmas.
And Meet Me in St. Louis as well was always on.
Yeah, every Christmas we sat around.
Two, we got one. In a minute.
Yeah, so throughout the 70s, it was everyone connected with that. So I think that was that part of why we loved her.
Because you reference her in your book.
Yeah, I talk about because I started when I was 15 years old. And I mention Judy and Mickey in the book because they were kind of exploited kids, weren't they? In the film industry, they were given pills and they were kept up way past their bedtime in order to fulfill their contracts. And that must have been very, very difficult for them. They were brilliant in the movies, but they were both whizzing off their tits on uppers. That's adult exploitation of child labour. And to live through that and to get to where she got to was extraordinary, I think.
Well, listen, we find out a lot more about Lenny Henry in your new book, Who Am I Again? It's out now, and this isn't your whole life, you clever man. You've sparingly just done childhood to kind of Tiswas and three...
Yeah, it's naught to Tiswas.
Oh, OK, naught to Tiswas.
So it finishes when I'm about 21, 22.
And is the idea, are there more volumes?
I think there are, yeah. Because people like Alan Bennett write about... There's like 19 books of Alan Bennett's life. I had a cream cracker in 1943. and I just thought, well, I want to do that. It's really weird. Well, you've written a book. You're vomiting up your life and then separating it into chapters. It's a really weird experience writing it.
But also, I've heard you talk about how some of the stories in this book you've told on stage... But actually, when you wrote them, they turned it out to be very different stories.
Well, when we did Danny and the Human Zoo, which is a film about my life in a parallel universe, because I didn't want to embarrass my family, it was really interesting because it was pretend. But this is not pretend. This is a real evocation of my life, trying to tell the story in an honest way. I didn't want to do my mum a disservice because she lived a tough life. We were very poor. She was racially abused when she arrived. You know, kids would follow her down the street and ask her where she was hiding her monkey tail. Women would come up to her on the bus and rub her skin and say, why doesn't it come off? So she had that to deal with, as well as earning the money to send for the rest of the family. So I wanted to write about that in as careful and as truthful a way as I could. And it took about 2 years. It was hard work.
I like the story about when you skived off school to do your the big audition for New Faces, which was the big kind of talent show at the time.
Yeah, New Faces was like X Factor or The Voice, but or Britain's Got Talent, actually. Had judges and everything, and I've been nominated to go on by DJ Mike, my manager. And I had to sneak out of the house early because Mum didn't know I was going to play truant from school. I put on my Sunday school clothes because they were the best clothes I had. And I went to Birmingham to this club with a very sticky carpet that smelled of wee. And we waited all day, and then at 6 o'clock I went on stage, and it was the most glorious thing. The judges had been saying, next, all day, but this was the first time they hadn't said, next! And suddenly I had the golden ticket, and I got through. And it was fantastic. And DJ Mike drove me back home to Dudley, and he saw my mum's silhouette in the window, and he drove off really quick. Because he knew what was going to happen. So I went to the front door, and Mum was standing in the front door. Where you been? I said, I went to an audition. Audition? What kind of audition? I went for an audition on New Faces. New Faces? What you do down there? Impressions? What do you mean impressions? Do it now. What? So she made me do the impressions on my front doorstep. If you want to come in this house and eat chicken, rice and peas and jerk gravy, you better do the impressions right now. So, thank you very much. I shall start the show. I was in a doctor the other day. He said, take off all your clothes and stand by the window. I said, why? He said, I can't stand my neighbours. Here's a funny... This is Max Bygraves. You've never heard of Max Bygraves, have you? All the millennials going, what's Lenny talking about? But there was this guy called Max Bygraves, and he used to talk like this. I went to the dentist the other day. He said, say, ah. I said, why? He said, me dog's dead.
It still works. It still works.
That's a good joke. So funny. Then there was a show. Michael Crawford had the show called Some Mothers Do Have Them. And he used to talk like this. And I had a ploughman's lunch the other day. He was furious. I was 16. It was the 70s. That's the kind of stuff they laughed at then. Anyway, I did this thing, and what was wonderful was my family, my cousins, my brothers and sisters gave me a round of applause. And it was the first time that acknowledged that I was this other person.
Yeah.
I wasn't the Len from inside the house. I was Lenny from outside the house. And Lenny outside the house did this stuff with his mates. And it was a kind of revelation, but it was also a wonderful homecoming for me.
Yeah.
Because they suddenly started to go, oh, yeah, Len's the one who does the voices. Yeah.
And what I love is looking at that boy on there, so kind of confident and eager to please.
Yeah.
And that boy is now a knight of the realm, Sir Lenny Henry. I mean, it's amazing. Oh.
That's me and the Queen.
But now, so everyone's clapping and going yay for you. You were going to say no.
Well, I asked everybody. I asked all my friends, who were very kind of lefty liberal stuff. I asked all my family, and everybody said, do it, you've got to do it. You know, you've worked hard, do it. And, you know, comic relief, do it. And I sort of closed my eyes and imagined my mum in the audience watching me, and I said, I'm going to do it. Because my mum would be sitting there with a very big hat. Everybody like this trying to see. And she'd be kind of... That's my son, you know! So I invited my sister Bev and my sister Sharon. My daughter was there, and it was a wonderful occasion. But they teach you how to accept it, you know. It'll happen one day, Graham.
Yeah.
Oh, bitterness there, viewers. So backstage they go, right, you will meet the Queen. You will walk 4 steps. You will wait. They will call your name. You will walk 4 more steps. You will wait with this gentleman here, who's a kind of military kind of guy in uniform. Then, when your name is called again, you will walk forward. The Queen will be in front of you. You will kneel. She will get a sword. Dip, dap, get up. You accept your thing, and you will walk off. I said, cool. So you practice in the room, and you're all excited, and you get in the thing, and you will stand here. OK, fine, I'm standing here. And then there's this kind of little bloke, very military, you know, he's got very short hair, standing there like that, about 60 years old, 70 years old, and he's standing there like that, with a sword. And I go and stand next to him, and the Queen's there, knighting somebody else, and he stands next to me and he goes, how comes you're not staying at the fucking Premier Inn, then? And I start laughing. I start laughing uncontrollably, and they call my name to go out to meet the Queen, and I'm really laughing a lot like this. And the Queen's looking at me going, what's the matter with him? And my girlfriend's in the audience going, stop it. So it was amazing.
Listen, the book is out now, but you're also touring a one-man show sort of based on the book?
Yeah, it's using elements of the book. There are readings in part 1, and there's Q&A in part 2, and lots of fun.
Okay.
It's not meant to be a kind of complete just reading the book. There's stuff about that, but in part 2, there's stories about now and things that we get up to now.
And that starts on the 20th of October.
Yes, it
and all
does.
over the country.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're talking about Lenny's big break in New Faces, but I'm guessing you would say, Renee, that Jerry Maguire was your big break. That was your first big, your name...
Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, yes. And for the... Tom Cruise has been on the show a number of times, and he is incredible when he shines his light on you.
Yeah,
so, like, to learn how to be a movie star off someone, like, amazing to learn from him.
Yeah. Best possible teacher, I'd say.
Because it wasn't someone in the cast. Who had the accident?
Oh, gosh, no, he was late for rehearsal. He's like saving people all the time. Yeah, no. He was late for rehearsal, and it had been raining, which is a miracle because that doesn't happen anymore in Los Angeles. And there had been an accident on the road in front of him, and there was a woman who'd been hit, actually. She was crossing the street. And of course, he got out of his car and ran to see that she was okay. And can you imagine being her on the road, and when you come to, there's Tom Cruise. You're dead, right? Surely you But so, yeah, he took her to the hospital, and it turned out, I guess, she didn't have health insurance, which is a thing. You know, you guys have probably heard about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, she didn't have health insurance, but he took care of it, made sure she was sorted.
Of course he did. He's
Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And are you still on the Tom Cruise cake list?
You're on the Tom Cruise cake list?
Do you know, I didn't know we were on the Tom Cruise cake list till today. I was talking about you being on the cake list, and somebody said, oh, yeah, we get a cake from Tom every year. And I'm like, do we?
Doesn't make it to
I've never seen a bloody cake. Yeah, someone in the office went, it's the nicest cake I've ever had.
It's a nice cake. Yeah, it is. Well, I'll call you when mine comes next time. Okay, shame.
I know. I've never seen our Tom Cruise cake.
What's this thing with cakes? Because my cousin worked with Tom Cruise, and he got cakes from Tom Cruise as well. What's that all about?
So he must have shares in a bakery, surely.
I hadn't asked, but that makes
sense,
sense,
when
doesn't it?
my granny turned 100, and then we arrived, and there were 100 cakes there from Tom Cruise. Yes.
What?
Yeah. Cupcakes.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, because... Was he trying to kill her? She's lived long enough.
Yeah.
Here's 100 cakes.
I think he's just... Yeah, well, it must be some way of spreading joy and using cakes.
Cakes bring joy, don't they?
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
But they do.
Cake.
I mean, I haven't had the joy, but everyone else in the office really impressed. Yeah. And Kirsten Dunst has been on the show, and, you know, like, it's so long ago since she worked with them, she still gets the cake. From Interview with a Vampire. She was a child in Interview, but still gets the cake.
And my 100-year-old granny, she's dead now, this was a few years ago.
Does she still get the cake?
Tom Cruise... I think there's probably...
Just arrive.
Outside the funeral home, there's a stack of cakes. No. The point is that she didn't... Tom Cruise didn't mean that much to her. She's of an older generation. She said, please tell your friend that I loved the cakes. It was so nice to receive them. It was just sort of... To her, it was just this... Oh, there's this random guy who goes around giving cakes to people. Yeah. Didn't realise it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, like a character from Sesame Street or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. OK, let's move on to our second book of the evening. Gotta get through this. My Life in Strange Times in Television, Louis Theroux.
Yes.
And now
It's a play on words.
Oh, we get it.
I feel like I have to apologise for the title. I think I can't work out if it's the cleverest title anyone ever thought of or the stupidest. I think it may be the latter.
No.
But it was the idea I came up with, the phrase "got to get through this" quite late in the process, and because early on I imagined I was writing not a serious book but quite an edgy sort of book, a somewhat literary book, but not a kind of big, crass celebrity memoir.
God forbid.
And then it turns out my publishers, I love my publishers, they've been wonderful and supportive, but I think they had a different book in mind.
Because didn't you have cover envy when you saw Lenny's book?
So, yes, so they brought in 40 or 50 other celebrity memoirs of a similar genre coming out around the same time. Among them was Lenny's book. And I actually said, Lenny's book looks quite classy. Look, he used a photo of himself as a young man. You know, maybe I could do that. And they said, listen, when you're Sir Lenny Henry, you can do that. Until then...
Did they say that?
Well, not exactly.
Oh,
They said it
Don't ruin it!
with their eyes.
Yeah.
There.
Does this ring bells with you, Renee? Because, of course, you famously worked in publishing.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yes.
I did for a little while.
What did you do in publishing?
I have no idea. I have no...
But how long did you do it? Because this was in preparation for Bridget Jones.
Yeah,
So how long did you do it for?
Let's see, I went over in January. We started filming after Easter, so...
A couple of months?
Yeah, a good few months, yeah.
So, like, you must have done something.
Well, yeah, I did. I got the coffee. I made the coffee. And I had to, you know, cut anything out of, you know, the local periodicals or that are about the authors that the publishing company represented. So I do that and then file them away. And I had to organize the book launches and things like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And who did they say you were?
They said that I was Bridget Cavendish, so a relative of the gentleman who was the owner of the publishers, which explained why I got the job with absolutely no skills whatsoever.
Now, when it comes to publishing a book, though, as far as I know, I think publishers are very keen on lots of stars on Amazon. You want good reviews. And I read a very good review for Louis's book. It's 5 stars here.
Oh, that's nice.
It took a long time to write. And I've read it several times. I think it's pretty good.
Yes.
Now, they've taken it down.
They took it down. They thought it was a conflict of interest. I mean, I'm the only person I know who's read my book more than once, so I would think that qualifies me to have an opinion.
Yeah.
But they disagreed. But the result was that my social media following, then once I announced that this had happened, all en masse began giving 5-star reviews to my book on Amazon. Oh. But all the reviews say, well, I haven't read the book, but I'm sure it's really good.
It's all about the stars. Now, originally, I think you were saying you wanted this book to be just about your career and your work. But in fact, it has given us a window into your personal life and what's gone in your life.
Yes. Well, and that was arrived at somewhat grudgingly. I mean, basically, when I signed the contract for the book, the idea was to do a professional memoir, which was a phrase I'd never really heard before, but I quite liked it. It felt safe. It felt like, oh, I don't really have to divulge. I don't know if you had this, Lenny. Like, I had some trepidation about divulging much about my own psyche, like my anxieties and my inner workings. And then I wrote for about 6 months to a year in my free time, and then I showed it to Nancy, my wife, And she said, it's fine, but it's a bit boring. And so I really...
Wow.
I went on a...
That is really hard.
I had to sort of sex it up a bit, basically.
OK.
How'd you do that?
I just realised I needed to talk about... For the book to work, I needed to go behind the scenes. I needed to apply the same inquisitorial vision that I use in my documentary work to my own life, which turned out to be more painful than you might think.
And in the documentaries, I think, and I mean this kind of as a compliment, you come across as quite artless, you know what I mean? It's just you kind of bumbling your way through these experiences. But in fact, in the book, we discover you do have strategies and things, putting people at ease. Like when you were making the documentary, the porn performers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, the idea behind my series Weird Weekends was that I would take part in whatever world I was investigating. So and that was partly just to be funny, but then it turned out to have other advantages. So in the episode I made about porn performers, I thought it would be quite funny if I sort of got involved in the world of pornography. And then there was a question about like, how far can I push that? And so I thought, well, I can go... I can take my clothes off and audition for for the main adult film agents. And, you know, and so that's what I did. I took my clothes off. You
thought you committed to Judy.
Yeah.
Really?
It was not completely, you know, comfortable for me, but I did it. The one thing, the concession I made was so this agent has an album of Polaroids that he shows directors who come in and want to hire talent.
Of course.
And so, but most of them, like, to do it properly, I hope I can use this term on TV, you're supposed to get wood.
That's fine, isn't it?
Yes,
to be able to show the directors basically what kind of
tree you have. The sapling or is it a regular?
There we go. And I stopped short. I thought, you know what? My sound recordist and cameraman and director, needless to say, or my mum and the viewers at home do not need to see.
It didn't make the documentary any worse.
No. But you know what happened as a result, though? We shot that early in the process, and then thereafter, I got the Polaroid, like he gave me the Polaroids, and so I had 3 of them, and for some reason I carried them around with me in my pocket. And then when I was interviewing other performers for the documentary, there usually came a point during the interviews where I would take out the Polaroid and say, do you know what, I auditioned for Jim South as well. And you know, in another context, that could be highly inappropriate, right? You wouldn't do that in a normal workplace. Have a look at that. I wouldn't dream of it. But in that context, suddenly the performers saw me as one of them.
Yeah.
And it had a very sort of beguiling effect. It relaxed them, and they were more comfortable when they saw the birch. The birch. I couldn't find the right tree to compare it to.
The willow.
The willow.
The possibility of wood.
The possibility of wood that I had with me.
And one of the other things that I think does make you unique is that when you're filming with these people...
Metaphor. I was just working with your metaphor.
Possibility of wood. That should be the title of the next book.
Here we go.
But one of the things that I think makes you unique is that you're not judgmental. You don't come to these stories and these people with a point of view.
No.
And, of course, one of the programmes that is really featured in the book is the Jimmy Savile documentary.
Yes.
And I really appreciated how you didn't kind of rewrite history or see it through hindsight. I mean, you still admit that, you know, you liked him in a way.
Yes, yeah, I quite liked him. And it's not easy to say that now because of what we know about who he was. But I've tried as much as possible to remain true to the experience at the time. And I tend to think, you know, to be totally honest, that the whole experience I had making not just the first hour-long documentary that I made with Jimmy Savile when he was alive in 2000, I think it was, and then the follow-up after he died where I attempted to understand how it was that he'd got away with his crimes and how it was that I'd missed all of that. But even having done those 2 programmes, I was aware there was more that I wanted to get off my chest, and that was one of the main impulses behind writing the book. And specifically, the feeling that in our understandable horror at his, the trail of havoc that he left in his wake, we were in danger of making him a figure of almost supernatural evil, whereas he was actually, a human being who caused, vast destruction, abused people, damaged lives, but who was able to do that because he was capable of charming, because he was, in certain respects, friendly and funny.
And so hiding in plain sight. I mean, really, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, a lot of your fans like about the documentaries are your voiceovers. You do those voiceovers, kind of explaining what you were feeling at the time. I felt so and so was tiring of my questions, so I decided to leave. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, what about the voiceovers though?
No, but you know what I'm talking about. That thing that you do.
I felt confused by Graham's question. It occurred to me that perhaps he was trying to lure me into one of his comedy bits. In an attempt to disarm him, I decided to say nothing.
Louis' silence caught me off guard. I decided to play it cool and drink some wine.
This was getting awkward. Was Graham simply embarrassed? Or was it true he does have a drinking problem? I wondered if my fellow guests felt as uncomfortable as I did.
I shared Louis' discomfort. Graham seemed distracted, and it was a long time since he'd asked me a question about my book.
Why is everyone talking to themselves?
Jeez, they're really flogging this comedy bit. When is Graham going to introduce me?
Right, let's meet our next guest with the late, great George Michael. This man was part of the most famous pop duo of the 80s, Wham! Now he's written a memoir called George and Me. Please welcome Andrew Ridgeley! Have a seat, too. Is that yours? I'm guessing it's been there a while. It's now
warmed up.
nicely room temperatured. Lovely.
Just how I like it.
You look so dapper and sharp.
Thank you.
Yes,
well,
no, you really do.
I'd like to fit in this evening.
Now, this is the book, Wham, George and Me, Andrew Ridgeley. And I was saying to you before, it's a lovely book. It's a really sweet book. It's almost like a kind of a love letter to George. And George, it's very nearly 3 years. And I just wondered, is that how long the book took, or were there kind of discussions in your head about when you wanted to tell this story?
The book took around 18 months, but actually it was really as a consequence of the tribute that Shirley, Pepsi and I gave to George at the Brits.
Yeah.
And there was a real upwelling of affection and love for George and for the things that he stood for, his music. But it seemed to me that there was negativity that consequent to his death that threatened to overshadow that legacy. And so I wanted to shift the perspective back onto the glory days and what was vibrant and exuberant about George's life and Wham.
And also just that friendship. I mean, how old were you when you met?
We were 12, 1975. He was a new boy at school. Introduced it into the class, and we were friends very, very quickly.
Yeah. And was it always music? Was that always the kind of the bond?
It was humour. It was humour and music. Juvenile, schoolboy, puerile humour.
I don't know what you mean. Wham had such enormous success. I mean, #1s on both sides of the Atlantic, 30 million records. But it was all in quite a short space of time. And from first hit to the end, what was it, 3.5, 4 years?
Yeah, well, really, from the point of the first hit, about 3.5 years.
So, when the end came, did you feel sort of shortchanged? Did you kind of think, wait a minute, over already?
No, I didn't, but it did happen rather quickly, and the scale and the speed of our success took us both by surprise. It took the world by surprise, that's for sure. But no, it was always something that was going to be a short-lived project. It was about us, it was about our friendship, our youth, and the expression of that. So it had a finite lifespan. It wasn't going to be us at 50, 60 bad boys. That wasn't going to happen.
But it must have been hard for you, because it stopped and it stopped. And then watching George Michael going on being George Michael, were you just like a fan in awe of what he was doing and what he was creating? Or was there kind of a bit of jealousy there?
No, I'm never jealous of my friend.
Yeah.
No. Envious of his talent, me amongst millions, I would have thought. But, no, it was... I'd achieved my ambition. My ambition was to be in a band, play live, and be successful, and that we achieved a bit quicker than we thought we might, for sure. But it was fairly limited in scale. But you know, he was my best friend, and for him to go on and realise his talent was something that I wanted as much for him as he did for himself.
Yeah. Now, you broke lots of records as a group, but one of the things you did, you were the first pop band to play in China. Is this right?
Yes.
And you would think, a lot of people in China, this is going to be lucrative. Ka-ching, wham, thank you. But it wasn't.
No, far from it.
Did they try to pay you or not?
Yes, they did try to pay us, but in the sense that foreigners weren't allowed to take money out of China, so they offered us bicycles. Great big cast iron bicycles. Wow. And the freight costs would have rather outweighed the benefit of bringing them.
I also like that when you went to China, they took the liberty of rewriting the lyrics of Wake Me Up Before You Go Go with a bit of a communist flavour. So it's Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, compete with the sky to go high, high. Wake me up before you go, go. Men fight to be first to reach the peak. Wake me up before you go, go. Women are on the same journey and will not fall behind. It doesn't quite scan.
No, it doesn't seem to scan, does it?
I like it.
No, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, communism, lovely. Now, I suppose at this time of year, heading towards Christmas, last Christmas does take on this poignancy because of George's death. But this year, it's also going to be a big film, Last Christmas.
Yeah, big feature film. Directed by Paul Feig, written by Emma Thompson, starring Emilia Clarke and Henry Golding. Yeah, it should be... I went on set a couple of times. I was fortunate enough to be invited. Have a little cameo, too.
Ooh.
Yeah. Non-speaking, of course.
And is it all Wham music?
Wham and George Michael.
Oh, OK.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a movie that will showcase the great songwriting talent of my old chum.
Well, that vocal talent and that songwriting ability, of course, was paid a beautiful tribute in, I think it was in the 1999, I think, when Louis Theroux made a film about off-Broadway shows. And he had a singing audition. You're going to love this. Cover your ears. Very good. Yeah. OK, it is time for music. This Brit Award-winning band are back with their 8th studio album, here performing White Noise, White Heat. It is Elbow. Ready? Come on over, guy, do. That was sensational. Thank you so much. Come on in and meet everybody. It's Louis, it's Lenny, Renée, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for that. Elbow, just so good at that kind of big, epic sound. Now, that is off the album Giants of All Sizes. And we've got to talk about this image. Talk to us about this image on the front here.
That's an enormous outdoor wave pool in China. The biggest one holds 230,000 people. And far from being distressed, everybody in the picture there is having a great time.
Are they?
They really are. And
Are they really?
No, really. And you'd only know that if you held the sleeve in your hands as you're doing.
Oh.
You see.
And what was I going to say to you? Have you been there? Is that...
Well, no, Craig, our keyboardist, discovered China.
He's really kept quiet about it.
No, he discovered the image.
Oh, the image.
Yeah. It kind of spoke to us about the noise and the craziness. It could only have been taken in the 21st century, that picture. Yeah.
And I should say the album is out next Friday?
Yes.
Yes, well...
If you say so.
Yes, I do. You've got a tour starting on the 1st of April?
Yes, we have.
Yes, which kicks off in Manchester and...
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Well done. Tickets are available now. Is that correct?
That's right.
Are they?
They told me you knew.
You know, it says available
right.
now. Yeah, right now. Well, I am. Listen, thank you very much for that great performance, and good luck with the album and the tour. Guy Garvey and Elbow! Now, that's nearly it, but we do have time for a quick visit to the red chair. Hello, who's there? Hi.
Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Jerry.
Jerry, and where are you from, Jerry?
Originally from Ireland, but I live in London.
Oh, they're loving you. They're loving you. Whereabouts in Ireland?
A small town called Mullingar, County Westmeath.
Yeah. And what do you do in London?
I'm a graphic designer.
A graphic designer? My God, he's left Ireland in the dust. OK, off we go with your story.
Well, my story happened in Dublin back in the 90s. And one night I was out clubbing. And I hooked up with this guy. And things are getting a little bit hot. So we go back to my house. And at my house, things get a little bit hotter, and clothes start to come off, etc., etc. And we're both left in our underwear, and he wants me to rip his underwear off. So I think, OK, I'll try. So I try, and it won't come off. And I try again, and it won't come off. So I think, I know, I have a brilliant idea. So I go to the kitchen, and I get the sharpest knife I can find. And then come back to the bedroom, knife in hand, as you do. And I go to do the deed. And as I do, the knife goes straight through his underwear and goes straight into my leg. So I have a knife hanging out of my leg. And I have to be rushed to hospital. The cut was so deep that they can't stitch it. So that I had to go to hospital every day for a full month to get the dressing fixed until it healed.
Oh, no.
And confession, to this day, I never actually told my family what really happened.
You can walk. I think you can walk for that. If you can walk, you can walk. Slight limp, but he can walk. Good story. That's good. Yeah. I bet they had sex before he went to the hospital. OK, that really is all we've got time for. If you'd like to have a go in the bed, share yourself and tell your story, you can contact us via our website at this address. Please say an enormous thank you to all of our guests tonight. Guy Garvey and Elbow! Theroux! Lenny, Andrew Ridgeley! And Renée Zellweger! Woo! Do join me next week with music from James Blunt, comedy actor Paul Rudd, Hollywood legend Robert De Niro, and the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen. I'll see you then. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye!